Do you think that's typically an Australian trait where business owners place trust or the strength of the relationship and weight it on such a high level within the context of their business decisions?
Maybe more in the past, not as much these days, but I still see it there. I still feel like it's there. But I could ask you the same thing. I mean, you're from County Galway, and Galway is known as the Happy City. It has over 120 festivals a year, so there's obviously a party atmosphere going on in Galway. And Ireland itself also has this, we call it She'll Be Right. You say it'll be grand or grand.
Yep.
Still trying my pronunciations.
Getting
it'll
better.
be grand. So do you see that, having been there and then coming to Australia, do you see a similarity in that approach to businesses? I mean, you're in sales now, you work in a sales capacity. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think Australia is a great place to work. There's three key things about working in Australia. I find that people are very down to earth. Regardless of your set of circumstances, there's an expectation to be down to earth. It's almost a core value in Australian business. And there's a great sense of humour. People don't take themselves too seriously. One of our underwriters down in Melbourne, she lives beside a swimming school, and it's called the Harold Holt Swimming School, which is named after Harold
Drowned
Holt,
Prime Minister,
who famously disappeared in the water. But also the optimistic outlook. I think that even going back to 30 years ago, when John Howard was Prime Minister, he wanted Australians to be comfortable, relaxed and comfortable in their life and not have burdens or worries. And I think that's changed. I think life moves a lot faster now than it did 30 years ago. The baby boomers were able to purchase a property which would cost probably 8 times their annual salary. That's not the case today. There's unpredictability on a macroeconomic level, things like COVID, which we saw in our own industry, which caused the collapse of a number of builders, St Hilliers, ProBuild, for example, the rising costs, the fixed contract, all of those things that were unseen and unpredictable, and regardless of the strength or the trust of the relationships that were retained in those cases, those businesses ultimately failed. In the case of Porter Davies Homes, most recently, we saw a similar scenario. One of the biggest builders where everybody had faith that the business would survive, but as you mentioned, things were going on behind closed doors that meant looking at a balance sheet at one point in time, historically, was no longer as up to date as the current cash flow issues that the business was.
Yeah, but also trusting. I think a lot of Australian businesses and people are generally trusting. So when a business gets in trouble and a plan comes out, they trust that it's going to be fixed. It'll be okay. Money's going to get poured into the business. But again, what we're missing is what's behind the scenes. We're trusting at a surface level because that's all we can see.
Yeah.
It's about what's happening behind the scenes, and this is where that different lens that I'm talking about comes in. And that's the unpredictable lens.